the bank. In that year, he published Proof Rock and Other Observations. He wanted an employment where he would be free when he walked away from the job at the end of the day to write and review and to begin an intellectual and creative life. But he immersed himself in it, and he rose very successfully through the ranks with good raises and became a very valued member of the firm. Had he stayed with the bank, he would have risen to the top of the banking world. He was very successful, and when he made the decision to leave the bank and go to Faber & Faber, it wasn't because Faber & Faber recognized him as a great new literary figure. It was because he was a very effective businessman.
Unreal city, under the brown fog of a winter dawn, a crowd flowed over London Bridge. So many I had not thought death had undone so many. Sighs, short and infrequent, were exhaled, and each man fixed his eyes before his feet. Flowed up the hill and down King William Street, to where St. Mary Woolnoth kept the hours with a dead sound on the final stroke of 9.
After America entered the war in April 1917, Eliot tried to enlist in the US Navy, but was rejected because of poor health, including an abnormally fast heartbeat from which he suffered throughout his life. He observed the final cataclysmic years of the First World War and its aftermath from his desk in Lloyd's Bank, and responded by writing the poem which was to be his masterpiece.
The Burial of the Dead. April is the cruelest month, breeding lilacs out of the dead land, mixing memory and desire, stirring dull roots with spring rain. Winter kept us warm, covering earth in forgetful snow, feeding a little life with dried tubers. Summer surprised us, coming over the Starnberger See with a shower of rain. We stopped in the colonnade and went on in sunlight into the Hofgarten and drank coffee and talked for an hour.
It seemed a rather mad poem, as a matter of fact. One imagined someone very wild and extreme. I think it was related to the First World War, and I think it was still more related to the mood of depression which followed the First World War. I mean, it very much related to things like the effects of the inflation in Germany, starvation in Austria, revolutions in Hungary and Russia and so on.
It is a poem about fracture, it's a poem about dislocation after the First World War. It's a terrifying poem because it's inside the head of a society, almost a world, which has gone slightly mad. I mean, we can't underestimate the effects of the First World War, and they're not just outside effects, they're inside effects. I mean, people's consciousnesses were shattered and changed forever by what happened in the First World War. And Eliot was the first poet to take all of that in all its chaos and all its fragmentation and say, I can write about this, and here it is.
The Wasteland is a revolutionary work which astounded Eliot's contemporaries and whose meaning is still being debated to this day. It is divided into 5 seemingly unrelated sections and combines everyday speech, popular songs, Wagnerian legend and classical mythology with allusions to writers from Chaucer and Dante to Shakespeare and Dickens.
And I will show you something different from either your shadow at morning striding behind you or your shadow at evening rising to meet you. I will show you fear in a handful of dust. Frisch weht der Wind der Heimat zu. Mein irisch Kind, wo weilest du? You gave me hyacinths first a year ago. They called me the Hyacinth Girl.
Eliot gave the manuscript of The Waste Land to his friend Ezra Pound, who changed the title and edited the poem so drastically that the final text was cut by over a third.
Ezra Pound is crucial not only to Eliot, but of course to modernism. I mean, he's the great talent spotter. And not only does he advise people, he edits them, and he's an interventionist editor. What gives him his authority? Well, it's not just brass neck, which is what people generally think about Pound, something faintly vulgar and self-advertising. I think an enormous confidence in his gifts too. There's a moment when Eliot has gone off like a pile of firecrackers about something or other, and Pound says, shh, no, it's the wrong way around. He says, I'm the guy who throws the brick through the jeweller's window. You're the guy who goes round the back for the swag.
You can have no literature without curiosity. And at that point, the most of the celebrated writers of my generation have simply withered away.
Not all the comments on the manuscript of The Waste Land are good. Some of them are just perverse. But the really remarkable thing is that Eliot, who after all had published a volume of poems, he was not unknown, was willing to have it mauled, as it were, by Pound. I don't know of any parallel, actually. Wordsworth and Coleridge were very close, and they probably did affect each other's poems directly, but nothing like actually taking your manuscript and scratching it out.
At the violet hour, when the eyes and back turn upward from the desk, when the human engine waits like a taxi throbbing, waiting, I, Tiresias, though blind, throbbing between two lives, old man with wrinkled female breasts, can see at the violet hour, the evening hour that strives homeward, and brings the sailor home from sea, the typist home at tea time, clears her breakfast, lights her stove and lays out food in tins.
One of the things that strikes me about The Waste Land